here in industry is a panel I'm very excited about, Entrepreneurship and Innovation with Desktop AM. I'm going to introduce the moderator, and then we will get her panelists on stage as well. I'd like to bring to the stage Mara Hittner. Mara is the Vice President of Strategic Partnerships for Matter Hackers. And I also want to mention that during the COVID-19 crisis, Mara developed and managed the Maker Response Hub, where she coordinated over 5,000 volunteers with 14,000 and up printers across the USA. And they ended up donating over 75,000 3D printed PPE to over 180 facilities in need. A lot of metrics there, but basically, Mara, you're a rock star. Thank you for all you do. And I'm going to turn this panel over to you and bring your panelists on stage.
Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. So excited to be here. This has been amazing so far. Thank yous to the volunteers and the incredible women who have been working behind the scenes to make this event such a success. I see Meredith. It's like romper room. Meredith. I see Danielle. Awesome. Okay, great. My name is Matt, Vice President of Strategic Partnerships for Matter. You can take down. We're just that for today. So I'm working with Matter Hackers. For those of you who are unfamiliar, Matter Hackers is the largest retailer of budget-friendly desktop 3D printers and materials, which is what we're going to be talking about today with my esteemed guests. Go to matterhackers.com. You'll see that we carry over 70 brands of desktop 3D printers, everything from little $300 kits to like up to $10,000-ish. Ultimakers, MakerBots, all the brands. We also carry over 2,000 types of different materials, including Quantum, which is our latest color-changing PLA. You may have seen it on Twitter lately. Specialty materials like stainless steel, which everybody's seen my little kitty ring that was printed on desktop printers. But today I'm really, really thrilled to introduce you to two entrepreneurs that I've had the honor of working with over the past few years. Start with Meredith Parnell. Meredith is an inspiring entrepreneur and mom who designs and 3D prints custom cookie cutters for her very successful Etsy shop, which I will put the link in the chat. It's called Sugar Dash Co. Last I checked, over 5,000 sales, 430 listings. It's probably more by now. She uses inexpensive 3D printers and lots of PLA to run her business from home, which would not have been possible without this technology. Welcome, Meredith. Thanks for coming. Good to see you. And then our second guest is teamconnection.org. Elle is an Indigenous robotics inventor, author, activist, and amazing advocate for youth. In 2019, she started her company, the STEAM Connection, a nonprofit that provides educational opportunities and super fun 3D printed robots to thousands of kids worldwide. Danielle has been recognized and profiled by People Magazine, L'Oreal, MIT, Verizon, various awards and fellowships. So excited she's here with us today. Welcome, Danielle. Okay, so let's start with Meredith. If you want to come off mute, tell us how you started with your business. Tell us your origin story. And just make sure you hit mute. You're still on mute, so just hit your little mic icon on the bottom there. It's red right now. When you click it, it'll be green. Up you go.
Okay, all good. My background is in video editing and photography, and that has always been my career path. I was in freelance, and then when the pandemic hit, I decided I needed to do something just in the meantime till gigs opened back up, because everything had been canceled, and I was at home. My daughter was at home full time. She's now 4. So I was making cookies one day with my mother-in-law in a class, and I wanted cookie cutters for them. I didn't want to hand cut them. And then I found out you could make your own cookie cutters. And when I did that, I found out I just needed a 3D printer. And all of a sudden, all of these women in the group were asking for cookie cutters and showing tubs and tubs of their cutters. And I realized there must be a market. So I went out and I told my husband, I'm starting a business. I'm just going to make cookie cutters. It sounds fun. And I took $300, bought my first printer, and I thought, if it doesn't work out, it's okay. I'm out $300, and I got a 3D printer, and that was best case scenario. And it took off. It just took a couple of months before cutters were flying out the door and just selling a whole bunch of them. And that's when I realized it was a full-time business. So now selling about 1,000 cookie cutters a week. We've just hit 15,000 sales. So, yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. From time to time, like I check your sales just to see, and it's just like the sales is impressive, but the amount of files that you have available and the amount of different designs.
We have over 10,000 files now. Yeah.
Like how
it's hard to keep it organized.
Yeah, like how else is that possible for a person managing a business in their home without 3D printing? Like,
right. We started
insane.
with one printer, and now we've got 12 that are running about 24/7.
Wow, that's awesome. Okay, so we're going to come back to you with more details. Danielle, let's hear a little bit about your history and your origin story.
First of all, I just want to say, like, Meredith is killing it. I love small businesses, especially Etsy ones. My mom has used Etsy for so long and is an artist. So I just think it's the most amazing thing ever. For me, I would have to scale back like 11 years now to when I got started. I was 10 years old and I was actually homeschooled. My little sister was interested in science and technology, but we didn't have any of those resources. A lot of the educational opportunities were way too expensive for us. And I'm like, there has to be something better out there. And there really was not. So I remember I was at Costco one day, which is like a store, and I saw these animal puppets. And I begged my mom to let me teach an animal science class at 10 years old for 25 kindergarten students over a semester. And it happened. I taught the kids. I learned a lot in the process, and it opened my eyes to education, as well as education in accessibility and steps that we can take to begin to fill those gaps. I'm Indigenous, and so I'm Ojibwe specifically, and there are a lot of resources that are not available to my community. So when I was in high school, I joined a robotics team, and I saw again and again how my community was being left out of those opportunities. The robots were like $500, and I'm like, kids need to access tech. This is important, especially in this day and age. Kids need to be able to know how to use computers to access the internet, things like that. And so I joined a robotics team, and I was met with a lot of hostility. It was a really difficult environment, and it pushed me to start my own nonprofit to create a safe environment for my students. And my 3D printer is what enabled me to do that and create robots that I give away to kids for free now.
Those robots are awesome, by the way. I will put some links in the chat for the work that you do. It's so interesting and heartbreaking to hear that you had such recent experiences of feeling like you weren't safe, or that you were excluded from programs that are meant for kids, robotics programs. You know, I hope that women, groups like Women in 3D Printing and groups like STEAM Connection can start to bridge those gaps and make it feel safer. I mean, if we're seeing that in education, Meredith, what was your experience like in entering the like the Etsy community as an entrepreneur, as a woman?
It was great. I didn't realize how big of a community it was. And the community has been very helpful. And I was really surprised by that. But I've made lots of friends through it, and it feels like it's been an easy transition.
Yeah, that's good to hear. It's from, you know, you and I did a panel last year, I think, about with Etsy shop owners using 3D printers, and it was you and I and two other gentlemen. But at the same time, I feel like, I don't know, Danielle, you were mentioning as well, your mom does a lot of business on Etsy, and it does seem like it's a little bit more friendly for women, for sure. But we, you know, you see that in any businesses, especially in additive manufacturing. Some people have really great experiences. Some people have, you know, a little bit more friction. Danielle, can you tell us a little bit more about the robots, the gap that you saw with the robots that were available, and kind of how you use 3D printing to bridge that gap and make a more affordable option?
Yes, of course. Talking about robots is my favorite thing. I love it. It's so exciting. I make robots every day, and I think it's the coolest job in the world. A few years ago, I was helping start robotics teams, and I noticed that a lot of the students weren't able to afford the kit. It was about $500. I was looking online for affordable robotics kits because I think that robots are such perfect ways to teach kids about engineering, and it just didn't exist an affordable one. So I decided to make my own when I was 18. And this is the first one that I made, named Ecker, or Every Kid Gets a Robot. And it's a robot that costs less than $20 and goes to kids for free. And it's 3D printed. Actually, when I first invented this, I didn't even have a 3D printer. I had someone else print it for me, and this is what the first one looked like. It's a little bit rough. I soldered out parts of it to make the components fit, but this was the very first kind of model that I had. And we've grown from there, have sent out thousands and thousands of robots. And it's such a huge blessing. But we print these, and we also have volunteers print them for the kids. And then my newest robot is something that I really want to show off. And its name is Scobox. And it's an Indigenous language learning robot that costs less than $100 to make. And look how cute it is. It's like a little droid. And it's actually wearable with a GoPro strap. And it sits on your shoulder. It just like clicks in. And it just sits like on your shoulder. And this is all 3D printed. As you can see, we match. And my robot speaks Ojibwe. And it helps kids learn our Indigenous languages. It senses motion and then just starts speaking. And it's all 3D printed. This little shell right here, as you can see, it's all 3D printed. So my 3D printers have really enabled me to be able to reach kids, especially for free, and to bring volunteers and community members on board to teach kids about science and tech. And I think it's the most exciting thing ever.
That is awesome. I'm going to switch back to Meredith. I want to actually ask both of you about production, because there's a lot of conversation about desktop 3D printers being great for prototypes, for one-off jobs, but y'all are doing like massive production. So Meredith, talk us through kind of like when you had your one 3D printer and you realized, okay, this is a job, this is a full-time job in business. How did you then scale to meet demand?
It was when I couldn't keep up and I was starting to use my first printer 24/7, and I thought, I think I could get a little bit nicer printer now. I've got some cash built up from the sales. So I went and I bought my first printer from the store. I bought a Prusa. And when that came in, I realized I could double my production. And then it was, once again, every time I would go and I would hit that certain mark where I was running out of time to print it and it was becoming stressful, I knew that was a time to scale it again. And so I just did that every single time. Sometimes I would buy 2 printers at once.
And what are you using for management, like software or print management?
I'm using Octoprint, connected through Raspberry Pis.
Okay.
So that helps a lot.
Yeah. And then Danielle, tell me about, I think this is kind of a challenge that you're starting to bump up. You have a very different kind of strategy for production though.
Yeah, so my strategy right now, because we're not able to meet demand, since we're a nonprofit, we make as many robots as we can make and we send them out for free. We get thousands and thousands of robot requests like a week, and we cannot meet that demand at all. So what we did is created a 3D printing portal where volunteers could come in and print parts for us and send them to us. And that way we're able to get those robots out to the kids. And I'm not running my little printer 24/7. And that has been a huge blessing. So many people have rallied around sending robots to the kids, and it helps us keep those numbers up, which is great. But yeah, we're buying more printers soon. So we're starting a little print farm, and I'm so excited. So yeah.
Yeah, it's great. It's been so exciting watching this process, and then being able to help out wherever we can. What kind of materials are you using for your robots, Danielle?
I use PLA.
Okay. And Meredith, how about you?
Yeah, it's all PLA.
All PLA. Why is PLA so attractive?
For me, PLA is attractive because it's low temperature. It's really easy. I'm not having to build enclosures around each printer. Also, they, you know, PLA is a little bit more food safe. You know, they're big, so you don't have to worry about the bacteria, but when it comes to chemicals, it's a little easier for that.
For me, I started printing on with ABS, and I noticed a problem of the kids snapping a lot of the components, and PLA has a little bit more flex in it. And so those prints were a lot more durable for the kids, and we had a lot less breaking robots, which was a good thing.
Meredith, what was one of the pleasant surprises that you found when when starting a business with 3D printers, desktop 3D printers?
That, I think one of the pleasant surprises was that I could run it all from home. I could run it from my laptop. I didn't have to put a card into each and every printer, and I could print on demand. If I wanted to go on vacation for a week, my printers could rest, or I could have someone come over. I've trained my dad since then to come over and run my printers and shipping, so I can still go out of town. So that has all been a pleasant surprise with it. That, and I can still have fun projects on the side. So I'm actually working on a little robot myself. But,
oh yeah,
yeah, first one. So might come to you for help, Danielle.
I can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
No, is that going to be for another business?
No, that's just for fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what has been an unexpected challenge, either with the 3D printers or just in starting your own Etsy shop?
I think just trying to grow slowly and not grow too fast so I can keep up with it. Because if I had this Black Friday the sale that I had this year, if that had hit the previous year, I think it would have tanked me. It would have been too big. So being able to just gradually grow has been so great, and just it has made it really manageable. And I think the space that it takes up in my house has been a bit of a struggle, keeping all of the boxes and the packaging supplies that has taken over my car spot in the garage. So we are actually about to move this all to a nice size workshop where everything is in one spot. And I think that'll be really helpful. But those have been some of the challenges, that storing the PLA, ordering it, and a little bit during the beginning of the pandemic, it was hard to get some PLA. PLA colors were running out. I know a lot of things, PLA that might have been coming from China was more difficult to get. So there's still a little bit of that worry. Is that going to happen again? Is it a steady flow now? Do I need to stock up? So we try to keep a little extra on hand too. We're doing about 50 rolls a month, I think is what we're at. So we try to keep about 1 month extra on hand.
Yeah, great point. And I think is our American production for materials, that at least for Matter Hackers, like that's what we're seeing. We're trying to, so hopefully we can manage some of those struggles.
Yes.
Because the world, who knows on a day-to-day basis what's going to be happening. And Danielle, what kind of challenges have you been seeing with growing your business with 3D printing?
I would have to say that a lot of my struggles are very similar to Meredith's. I'm actually speaking with you right now from our headquarters, which is a small little conference room. We're very thankful to have it, but we are very quickly outgrowing it. So we're actually looking for a new space to expand into, and also get some industrial equipment like a wave soldering machine, some industrial 3D printers, a mill, stuff like that, because we do a lot more than just 3D printing. We do a lot of roboting in general. And I'm like, I want a saw. Can we please get a saw? So we are working on expanding into that and kind of learning like how, like coming into a schedule, I think, like who can come in and change the 3D prints and run that and run, shipping and things. Because a lot of time I'm doing it myself, and we have a very large team, but we're from all around the United States. So we're all youth-led. Almost everyone is a student. So that has its own unique challenges of just there aren't a lot of people physically here to help with that expansion. So yeah, that's kind of the stuff we're working on, like hiring, expansion, all that fun HR stuff.
It's almost like running a real business.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yep. And what about unexpected pleasant surprises, Danielle, in your journey with this?
I would have to say just the support that I've received from community members, especially those who are makers and who print things for us and who support us, who ship us parts all the time, just unexpectedly. I'm so thankful for that. And it's so nice to be able to open my door one day and see a bunch of parts that I'm able to the next day ship out to Indigenous educators and students. It's always a surprise to me how much like people care about educating kids about robotics and about STEM. I just think it's amazing. And to see how much people have rallied around our language learning robots especially has been really cool. And they'll have their own little table at 3D Experience World in a couple weeks in Atlanta. So they're that makes the SolidWorks software, which is what we designed all of our robots on. So I'm really excited about that. And I'm just excited to be able to get the robot up to more kids.
So great. Both of you mentioned shipping struggles, which like, I feel ya. When people think about like, it's so great that we now have these like inexpensive machines and materials that you can start your own business, but there's like those stumbling blocks that you don't always think about, like shipping, like having a room for your shipping materials and all of that. Meredith, what's I guess just some like overall advice that you would give? Like, what do you wish somebody told you about starting a business with 3D printers?
I wish I would have known that the 3D printing is such a small part of it. And there's the whole scale of the rest of the business that goes along with it. From designing to the HR, you've got packaging. Now I've got cousins that are helping. My parents are helping. My husband helps me. There are just so many different areas that I had no clue all would fit in to create this business. Supplies and managing supplies, customer service. If there's ever an issue, if somebody's package doesn't arrive, things like that. So there's a lot. Custom designs, photography, video editing comes back into play. So there are so many areas to think about.
Yeah, all of the marketing and everything that you need to do.
Yes.
Danielle, how about you? What do you wish somebody had told you for this journey?
To surround myself with people who uplift me no matter what. When I was starting out, I didn't really have a sense of like a 3D printing community or a women in STEM community or a women in small business community. And it took me a very long time to be able to kind of stand on my own feet and to feel confident in these spaces, especially engineering spaces. I really wish someone had just kind of slapped me in the face and said, go get a mentor right now, And I was able to find mentors by just DMing people and by pestering my friends like, hey, help me out. Please help me. I want to learn. And just asking those questions and reaching out to people has helped me so much. It helped me build that support network. It helped me create a space where I was welcome. And that's what I suggest for everyone, no matter what industry you're in, no matter what you're doing, find people who support you and uplift you no matter what.
Yeah, that community support for me has been so important too. I mean, during our Black Friday sales, we had a friend actually lend us his Pulse printer so we could help keep up. And it's just, it's hard to imagine it without that community support.
Yeah, people say this this industry of additive manufacturing and 3D printing is all about the technology, and I often say it's not, man. It's about the people. It really is. Mm-hmm. Mentorship is a great topic. Meredith, have you had any experience with mentorship, either purposefully or just in your journey?
I haven't, not with 3D printing. Everything for me has been self-taught and researched. I would like to, but at the same time, a lot of people I would ask questions to, I feel like, are my competition, and I don't want to do any damage there. So I have had small chats with a few people that also do cookie cutters on Etsy, but it's very minimal. So my community is just kind of watching cookiers, the people who make the cookies, and working with them. That has been more my support group than the 3D printing side, but I'd like to look for it.
Yeah, interesting. We do have a couple of questions in the Q&A. Okay, so you kind of touched on this, but as far as 3D printing things that interact with food, any safety concerns, food safe plastic or bacteria growth getting in between the layers, how do you address that with your shop?
So the idea with the PLA, it can't be put in the dishwasher. So you do have the risk of bacteria growing in between those layers. But the idea is that you're not using it on raw food. You're not going to eat the raw food. You will stick it in the oven. That would kill the bacteria. So that is the idea there.
Yeah. Yeah, often with Matter Hackers, we get a lot of those kinds of questions. And like, while there is food safe material,
exactly.
Again, the process, you have the little layers. So, you know, they're sort of disposable, but you just got to be really, really careful. But, you know, something custom like a cookie cutter. Can you show us actually that we haven't seen show and tell from you yet?
Show
Can
us.
you show us a couple of designs?
I can.
I love that they're monochromatic.
This is kind of a multi-cutter, and what that looks like. These are usually big sellers come St. Patrick's Day. They're little St. Patrick's kind of figures.
They're so cute.
Rainbows. So that's kind of what that looks like, and we have like a double edge to help make it sharp and sturdy, and they're really strong, so they're not flimsy. You're not going to break it. So that's kind of what that looks like.
Yeah, people don't really understand how strong PLA is.
Right. Yeah, it's really strong.
It's a lot stronger than it gets credit for.
Yeah, for Valentine's Day, this has been huge. It's just a donut that cuts a heart out.
That's great.
Yeah, but yeah, super strong, super sturdy. It will melt in the dishwasher. It'll work, and it happens. We try to tell people not to, but you know, it happens.
Yeah. Let's see. What tips? This is a little vague, but I'm going to ask it and just kind of leave it an open question. What tips would you give to with 3D printing? You all interpret that any way you like. Danielle, you want to take a stab?
Sure. I'm not quite sure if it's someone starting 3D printing for the first time or maybe branching out, trying new materials, trying a new printer or something like that. But I would suggest to read up on something first and to ask a lot of questions before you get started and potentially waste some money or materials. For me, part of the learning process is just, as I said before, like pestering people in the DM, just asking questions that I don't know. And that has really given me the courage to be able to expand into new materials, to new inventions, to new ideas. So I recommend like just asking people about it first, and it can really help you like find out a lot that you wouldn't know, especially like which machine should I be using, which filament should I be using, what should I print, where should I get these files from, what software should I be using. So yeah, I recommend ask a lot of questions first and then start.
For me, I would say plan to fail. Expect to have some failed prints and just figure it out that way. For me, that's what a lot of it was trial and error.
Same here.
Yep.
But as I said, like before, my first prints were a bit rough, and you just keep learning and perfecting from there.
My first cookie cutters were flimsy and were easy to break. So I'm surprised I got so many good reviews in the beginning, but yeah, you learn.
Yeah, you always, I mean, that's what 3D printing is really made for, right? Is that iteration, and I almost said innovation, but like also innovation. So when you want to try something new, even for your own established business, with 3D printing, you can do that because you're just designing a new file. Which brings me to the next question here. This one is from Meredith, but we can, Danielle, you can chime in as well. What software do you use to design your cookie cutters? And can you tell us a little bit about the process, because
Yeah.
you do a ton of different files and designs, but how do you decide what designs you're going to offer?
Okay, so for me, the process is getting a design. Let's say I'm just gonna make a heart, or let's say I want to make this cutter. I would first sketch it up. Usually I use Illustrator. I use a lot of the Adobe software products. And then
this.
from Illustrator, I would take it into a program like Fusion and build my cutter there. Then I use this little guy here. It's called a jelly comb, and it's got it's programmed. So the idea is I can use this to make multiple sizes at once, because each cutter is available usually in about 8 sizes. So I can press one button and it will go ahead and make a file for each size automatically, and then it will go and rename them for me. So I'm not sitting there having to rename every single one based on the size. And then all I have to do is move it to the correct folder. So that's a lifesaver. We also use it for printing our slips and shipping to do that automatically. So that's kind of that process.
Danielle, how about you? Oh, sorry. Did you have more, Meredith?
Oh, no. I'm done.
Danielle, what about your design process?
I'm a CAD girl all the way. I love SolidWorks. I've been using it for years. I also teach kids how to CAD and how to CAD robots. I love the SolidWorks app for kids, for any of the educators out here. But yeah, actually, SolidWorks discovered my work at a robotics competition when I was 18, and they helped give me a platform to be able to do the work that I do now. So yeah, no, I love SolidWorks. I'm always reading up on their tutorials, their books, and they have a really great community and network that has really supported.
And I'm just throwing your links back in the chat. But Danielle, what are some of your long-term? I guess this is a question for both of you. What's next? What's the long-term goal for your business? Danielle, we'll start with you.
So I think our mission is in the name of my robot. Every kid gets a robot. And I want to reach every tribal community with accessible technical educational resources. That is like my biggest goal that I have. I want to create maker spaces in our communities. I want to provide things like printers, things like robots. And that's my goal, is to support Indigenous educators, to support Indigenous schools, and to give them the resources needed to be able to thrive and to teach students needed skills. And those are like very big goals, given how much stuff costs. A lot of communities don't have internet access. A lot of communities don't have a lot of resources. There's a lot of food insecurity in many communities as well. And so there's a lot of problems to tackle. There's more than just robots. Something we tackle a lot is actually literacy. And we work a lot with giving out Indigenous children's books and making sure kids can still learn even without internet access. And our robots work without internet access. So it's about addressing all of these problems and supporting our unique community needs. And so that's like my big goal, is to help customize a plan for every community and help each educator where they're at. So yeah, and also one day to make a big maker space. I would love to do that. That would be really fun.
Meredith, how about you?
For me, I think growing on the side, kind of, I would love to do tutorial videos for printing and everything that comes to the cookie making process. I would love to be able to show other people, because I do believe that we're going to get to a point where more people have these 3D desktop printers at home available to them, and they might say, you know, I need this cookie cutter today. I want to print it. How do I do that? How do I have a 3D printer? How do I run it? I want to be able to teach them from the very beginning, maybe setting up a printer, setting up printer profiles, to different types of materials, how to design that cookie cutter, how to get it going, printer maintenance, and all that little stuff that you need to know. I really want to do that. And then also get into the photographing your products and even decorating the cookies. So It's kind of
I
an
would watch
all-in-one. And also doing maybe like selling STLs as well.
I mean, speaking of education, you know, Meredith, we've talked about, I talk to educators all the time that are like, well, I got a 3D printer and, you know, we're not doing much. I mean, we're just like, I'm having them design little like cookie cutters and Tinkercad and that's about it. It's really nothing. I'm like, no, that's a job.
That's a career.
Yeah. That is
Who knew?
entrepreneurship. But you shared with me how this has all affected your daughter and her interests. Can you talk a little bit about your experience?
Yeah, so she's 4, and so we're looking around preschools where she's going to go to kindergarten, and my husband and I have decided we really want her education to be STEAM focused. We want to make sure that she has access to all these things that really interest us as well. My husband's a video editor, so we're just very much have always been in that creative and techie world, and we just really want her to be able to see that, have access to it, and thrive in it. So when we were looking at schools, we went to one by us and noticed that they had a 3D printing lab. They also had a robotics class where they made solar paneled cars. So that was huge for us. And it's like, yeah, can you imagine? It's incredible to think what they're going to be able to do with that.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Danielle, how about you? Any other comments on that? Just the need. What are so for example, I'd love to hear kind of what you've seen with boots on the ground with especially with young women and with schools and students that maybe have not even been exposed to anything like 3D printing before. Because if you don't know it exists, you can't even choose that, oh, that's not something I'm interested in. You're never given the choice. What's been your experience?
I've seen so many of my students' mindsets completely change about what they see about engineering and science. I know when I was younger, I always thought engineering was just working with cars. And I got older and I was like, oh my gosh, biorobots is a thing. And that's my personal passion. I've seen that same thing happen with my students where they realize how vast the options are and how so many of those things don't even require degrees or how many of those things can be learned online. And it opens up so many doors. And I think that's an amazing thing. I've had my students tell me that I'm the first Indigenous woman they've seen in robotics, which I think is a tragedy. I think we need to see more Indigenous women in engineering as a whole. And a lot of my students are just saying, like, I've never seen this representation before, because like our entire nonprofit is minority led completely. Every single one of our team members are minorities and people of color. And so it is really hard to hear our students say, like, I've never seen this representation before in my life. Like, I had no idea this was even an option for me. And so I see my students go on to start their own nonprofits. I see my students go on to invent their own robots, to design their own apps, write their own books, draw their own STEAM creations. Like even this drawing behind me is of a young and Afro-Indigenous girl in a ribbon skirt as an astronaut. It's very hard to see, but those are doodles that I do to represent all of our students. And a lot of my students had never seen that before. And so I really just want to open up their eyes and also create a space that they can thrive in and that they're welcome in, because that just doesn't exist for so many kids. And so, yeah, I've seen kids' mindsets entirely change. And it's so cool to see your students like go on to pursue engineering and to go on and start their own organizations. It's insane to me. I had no idea like that was possible when I started, because like I'm 21, so my scope of seeing how far my students have gone is very limited. So yeah, I just think it's really amazing, and I'm excited to see what the kids continue to do.
Yeah, I'm so inspired by both of you. And, you know, especially, you know, thank you so much for being at this conference where, you know, it's understandably, it's very focused on kind of, you know, bigger machines, aerospace, legal, like worry about, but we also need to worry about that pipeline of talent and how do we get young kids and especially young girls and other minorities them interested. Like earrings. You know, like anything, you just have to find that access point, whether it's cookie cutters or, yeah, there you go. I've got my, I just made these with a 3-doodler. Just kind of sketch.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Freestyle Love Supreme on Broadway, and this is their logo. Just out of a 3D, like, you know.
These are by an awesome Indigenous artist.
Wow.
And look how cool. I love
cool.
I'll put a link in the chat.
Yeah, like this is the kind of stuff like that gets kids excited. And then it's so wonderful that we have such a strong community from the entry level all the way to, you know, the professional robotics and the bioprinting and the aerospace and everything else that we're all going to see all through the rest of today and tomorrow. So we have a couple of more minutes here. Let me see. There seems to be a new question. I put the websites in, and oh, one of them was an answer. Oh, there was. Oh, sorry, I missed one. Have you worked with any bio-based material? Have you worked with any other materials other than PLA? Experimented with? Either of you?
I have, but not for cookie cutters. I don't want to stray from that. So I just, when I do, it's just for fun.
Yeah. Find what works and stick with it.
Oh, sorry. I cut over you.
Go ahead, Danielle.
We're working on biodegradable robotics components out of plant-based material with like water resistant, kind of like a shell out of algae, which is really exciting. So we're working on that. It was just funded actually by Verizon, and we've been developing some new cool robot stuff. So yeah, our goal is to see how that can kind of merge with 3D printers and be accessible to makers.
Remember the question that I was going to ask when y'all inspire you? What keeps you going with the, you know, the struggles with the shipping and printing and, you know, all of the things? What keeps you going and makes you feel like, yeah, I'm on the right path? This for me, and I need to be doing this. Meredith, you want to start with you?
All right. What keeps me going is a great review or a comment. I know it sounds silly, but when someone reaches out to me and tells me how much they love it and how better it is than a lot of other cutters that they have found, that really helps me. And I really like to sketch, though sketching a cookie cutter is a lot different than drawing art. So it's not quite the same, but it's still fun to design things, and sometimes I go overboard. So that allows for me to still have a bit of that creative outlet.
Awesome. Danielle, how about you?
I'm definitely inspired by my students. I get the coolest messages from parents of my students talking about how, you know, the kids, especially the girls, have opened their eyes up to the world of engineering and robotics and design. And the messages always make me cry because I just never thought that robots could do that or have that impact and make students feel confident in themselves and in their abilities to design and create and see a path in that. And it just, I think, so awesome. And it just keeps me doing what I'm doing no matter how hard it gets. And yeah, I'm just really, really thankful to be able to do that with my time. I think it's really special.
Yeah, I feel like when kids get get access to 3D printers and to all this technology, it just changes their lives.
Well, I am super thankful for both of you. And if I'm not mistaken, y'all have a couple extra minutes. You can come and join us on the Matter Hackers table on the first floor of networking, which I believe is right after this. So if anybody has any further questions and wants to chat with our esteemed guests, come find us at the Matter Hackers table on the first floor.